You are in for a treat today. My guest is going to do something that has never, ever, ever, ever been done on this program. And that's over what, 3 years? Vicki Sullivan in Australia. What are you going to do today?
Oh, hi, Eric. Thank you for having me. Today I thought I would do a demonstration of how I would paint darker skin tones, because so many portraits are paler skin, and I thought it would be great to do some dark skin tones and show you the colours that I mix to get those looking realistic.
Well, I think that's wonderful. I know that this is really challenging because I have had many times I've brought in African-American models, and there are certain parts of it that are difficult, you know, and I'm very curious how to do this because nobody's ever taught me how to do it. So I'm glad we're doing this today. This is really good. So why don't you go ahead and well, first off, it looks like a lovely studio. When we're done with your demonstration, maybe you'll show us your studio?
I'd love to. This is my happy place, my studio.
Your happy place. Well, then you'll show us your happy place. Well, why don't we go ahead and kind of get started? You just showed me something. That's the first thing, is you showed me something with different backgrounds. Why don't we talk about that and show me what you've got? Okay.
Well, first of all, sometimes I have a bit of a problem deciding on a background, and sometimes I've been caught and had to repaint the whole background several times because I haven't been happy with it. But what I should really do is do colour studies. So this time, because I wasn't really happy with the background in the photo, I did 3 little colour studies, which are here. And basically I did them, you know, no detail, just the basic shapes and outlines, and just 3 different colour backgrounds to give it a try. I'm not sure which one I like best, but I'm sort of going between the goldy brown or the green.
My favorite is the green.
Yeah, that was the first one I was drawn to.
It really sets off the skin tones beautifully.
Yeah,
the goldy brown fights it, and the blue feels too cool.
Yeah, the green is very sort of flattering to skin, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's sort of like a natural garden or something in the background look. But it was really valuable to do these little studies, and I think I better do them more often, actually, because it gives me much better idea of how to how to get an idea of what I really want in the background, and it saves me doing a giant painting 3 times and getting, going over it, which is
that's right. There's nothing worse than hating your background and having to repaint it.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our lesson.
Okay, so I'll just put the tripod over here on the little marks that I've made on the floor. Now, you can see this is my painting. I've already done a first pass on this painting, but you have got photos of the colour, the underpainting that I have done. Maybe you could put them up on the screen later.
I have the reference image here.
Yes, and there should be one of when I just did the raw umber outline, the construct.
I don't have that one. Maybe Ali has it.
Maybe, but anyway, so basically I started off with raw umber. I used a bit of lean medium, which I make myself, which is just half and half linseed oil with Gamsol. And that just thins the paint out a little bit so that you don't start off with a thick layer. And I just brushed in the raw umber underpainting. And then when I started with the first pass, I very thinly applied with lean medium, again, a bit of black for the hair, just to sort of set up for the skin tones. And then over here is my palette, and I'll just go through the colours that I've set up for this. And so basically it's just ivory black and raw umber. I've got transparent brown oxide and transparent red oxide. They're quite good, those transparent colours. Mm-hmm. You can sort of get a bit more viscosity with them. more like a tint. I quite like that. There's light red oxide, which is a beautiful colour. Ultramarine blue and cobalt blue. It's really good to, when you're painting skin, to look for the cools and the warms. And I didn't used to do that. I used to only see the warms, I think. And then gradually, as my eye became more
Sophisticated.
I started actually seeing the cools in skin, and it was a game changer. It really changed the whole look of my skin tones. And so I always really try and search out the cools now. And 𝗂𝗶𝗶𝗏, which is just Winsor and Newton. You don't want the deeper one for this, I don't think. Viridian, alizarin, cadmium red, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow deep, and cadmium pale, which I probably need a little bit more of later, maybe. And I use the Cremants white. I find the lead white, it's just the Michael Harding paint. I find that's really great for skin tones. It has more of a translucency. And then down here, I've just mixed up, and this is the King's Blue, which I've got down there just to help me get to those cooler skin tones. And I've mixed up a little bit of that with a bit of alizarin and white there, because I don't know if you can see, but in the reference photo and, you know, in her, there's these beautiful pale bluey mauvey skin tones that are the cool bits that I've been searching out. So now the first thing I do before I start is oil in. So I've just got a little sponge here.
So that painting then is dry. You did that previously?
Yes, I've already done this. This is the first pass. I wanted to figure out the colours before I showed everybody what I was doing. So I thought, well, I'll do the first pass and then do the second pass.
So you're oiling that out, looks like with a makeup cotton or something.
Yeah, just a little makeup sponge dipped in oil. You don't want too much oil, just a thin layer of oil so the paint spreads more easily.
Is that straight? Is that your lean medium or is that your linseed?
No, this is not lean medium. This is just, actually it's walnut oil, and I'm using walnut oil for the oil in just because linseed oil goos up my sponge too much, so sometimes I use walnut oil. I find that's really good for plein air painting too, because I often spill it and it's easy to wipe up, whereas the linseed oil goes like it really sets like, I don't know, like varnish or something in the bottom of my plein air box, and is all sticky and tacky and hard to clean. But the walnut oil is easier to clean, so it's better on the sponge as well.
Okay. So Vicki, that's an interesting mole stick you have there. Tell us about that. You told me when you visited Austin, Texas to shoot your video, but tell me about that.
Yeah, this is called a marl fork, 𝗂𝗋𝗄𝗋𝗄𝗋, and my friend Fred Whitson makes them and sells them, and you can buy them on the Marl Fork website. Just Google Marl Fork. But I'm his tester. So he also makes one with 2 prongs, but I quite like this one that's like shaped like a walking stick. So he's made me a few prototypes, and then I give him feedback. And this is what we came up with, and he makes them and sells them, and I get to test out new ones. And he invented this little hand rest, which is actually quite good. And I don't know how artists, I've seen some artists, they just put their little finger and paint like that, but I just can't seem to do that. I need something to rest my hand on for doing the finer details, especially around the nose and the mouth and the eyes. You know, those fine details, I need a steady hand, and just resting it on the marl stick seems to really help. So I've got my marl stick there, and I'll start to mix up a bit of paint over here.
And what's that your hand is dipping into right there, that black thing?
Oh, this is your famous brush clip, which has got it there, and it's brilliant. I take it plein air painting, and it was perfect for this as well.
You don't even have any paint on it yet.
No, I don't actually. I'm a pretty neat painter.
I'll tell you what, Vicki, before you start the portrait, let's get the show officially started, and then we'll get right back to you.
Okay.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
Well, welcome to this special edition of Art School Live. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Plein Air Magazine and Fine Art Connoisseur Magazine, and I am crazy about realism. And our guest today is a fabulous realist, a very, very classic realist by the name of Vicki Sullivan, who's coming to us from Australia live. And so welcome to Vicki. We're going to get back to her today. She's going to teach us how to paint skin tones of an African American. Now, in Australia, I think they don't use that term, so because they're not in America, just guessing. So anyway, we're going to get to that in a second. We have a prize for you. If you leave a comment, whether it's during our live or replay, you have a chance to win this book, Make More Money Selling Your Art by yours truly. And from our last program, the winner of the value specs that help you see your values is Charlotte Gray in LaSalle, Utah. We have people watching from all over the world. We encourage you to leave a comment because you can win. All right. We also have an incredible opportunity for you, and that is a free video, whether you want it streaming, downloadable, or on actual DVD, for those of you who still do that. It's called 97 Incredible Art Secrets from the World's Finest Artists. We put together a 5-hour sample video of some of the in-depth things that we have done, 50 artists, and it's yours for free. If you want the DVD, you got to pay the shipping, which is not much. And anyway, go to 97artsecrets.com. And if you want to subscribe to this program, we're here every weekday at 12 noon, and you can find us on YouTube. Just go to Art School Live, or you can follow on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You can follow us on all those places at Eric Rhodes. Okay. Now let's get right to our guest, Vicki Sullivan. Okay, Vicki, take it away.
Hi guys, I'm just going to mix up some colors. I think I'm going to start with this sort of area here, which is the lightest area. So I'm just going to mix up some of my Cremants white with a bit of yellow ochre and maybe some of this sort of mauve that I mixed up earlier, which is a bit of alizarin, ultramarine blue or king's blue and white. And I'm just going to sort of hold that up against there to see if I'm on the right track, which I think I am. And then I'm going to sort of mix some of these colours that are around that area so I can sort of blend them a little bit. I am going to try a bit of the yellow ochre, and I've found that when mixing this particular girl's skin, that raw umber was very useful as a sort of neutralizer.
Beautiful skin.
Yes, she has got beautiful skin. She's got a beautiful face and she's got the most beautiful smile, which you can't see in this photo. But yeah, I was really lucky to find 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who is actually from Zimbabwe and lives in Australia now and is an Australian. So we're very lucky to have such a lovely model to paint today. And you've got the reference image there that people can paint along if they would like to. So I'm just sort of mixing up colours, and then I sort of hold them up and see if they sort of match. So I just hold them up against it, and that's looking pretty good, isn't it? You'd have to think that's sort of rough. So I just used a bit of the raw umber, a bit of the dark transparent brown oxide, and some white, more white I think, and a bit of the yellow ochre. And you just mix it. You can tip it, you know, redder, tip it bluer, tip it more yellow, and just hold it up against it. And if it's too chromatic, add some white and raw umber. As my teacher used to say, black and white kill colour. So if you want to neutralise your colours, if they're too highly chromatic and saturated with colour, you can knock that down a bit with a bit of white or black. So now There you go. Now that's sort of getting there. I've probably made it a bit dark, so I'll just add a bit more light to that. And every now and again, I'll dip into my walnut oil just to, if the paint's a little stiff. You don't want it too runny, especially when you're painting like this, which I don't.
So you don't
usually
use any medium at this stage?
Well, if the paint's a little bit stiff, I'll add a bit of, walnut oil or linseed oil just to get it a bit more buttery.
But not a medium that has, like a traditional medium that has Damara varnish in it or some other form.
No,
Okay.
the only medium I use when I'm painting is either linseed oil or walnut oil. But I do use the lean medium to begin with, just for the underpainting sometimes.
Right.
So that's my main thing. So I'm going to start now with a bit of this blue, which I'm just going to play that up a little bit. And I'm going to spread it out a little bit. And then I'm going to mix some of my skin tone into that blue and go around it a bit and blend it a little bit so that that is the highlight. The light is hitting this part of her forehead and bouncing off. So that's sort of one of the lighter areas that we'll see. I'm softening into the hair, because one of the things to make hair look more realistic is to keep it very soft around where it meets the forehead. And that helps make it look more realistic.
Hey, tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from people around the world. I see hello to Guam.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's lovely. Wow.
Canada.
Yes, well, oh, lovely. That's great.
London.
How exciting.
Wow. It's late in London. Okay.
Right.
Lyon, France.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I added a little bit of the yellow ochre then to my mixture, because as we're coming around away from the light, of course, the colour's darkening. And
is there any way we can get the camera any closer?
Ooh,
yeah, it's pretty close already, I know.
like that, do you think? Is that better?
That helps. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. I'm sort of juggling here because the the tripod's right in front. The leg of the tripod is right in front of my leg where
that's
I'm painting.
That's the price of stardom, Vicki.
It is, and I don't want to I don't want to knock it, you see, knock it over or anything. But it's all very finely balanced. Yeah.
Do you always have your palette on the side like that, or do you normally have it below?
Never. I never have it on the side.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you when I show you my studio later. I'll show you my palette, which is ginormous, and it's definitely flat. And I use a big glass palette that I got from the side of the road on a dressing table. You know, one of those dressing table glass tops that you see.
Mm-hmm.
We have people, people put their old things out on the road for people to take sometimes.
We do that too.
Yeah, and I saw that and thought, oh, great. So it was from my neighbours down the road, so I grabbed that, and it just makes the perfect palette. So I'm just coming around here to this area, and then there's this beautiful area here where it goes cool again. So I'm going back into the cool part. Oh, that's a bit too light there. I've gone too light, so obviously grab a bit more of that mauve and put a bit of dark into it. So it's just basically you're playing around with darks and lights, cools and warms, and I'll soften everything as well later. And I've kind of changed the hairline a bit. It is very strange for me painting with the palette up there. So, I'm sort of learning a bit as I go in a way. Oops, that's way too red. There's a little bit more of that redder just under here where the shadow of her eyebrow is in the eye socket, and a bit more raw umber And I found that when I was painting the underpainting, because I wanted to figure out the colours that I'd be using, because every skin tone's different, you know, like everyone has different skin tones. So I found that I was using quite a lot of raw umber, and it was really useful for her skin tones. And, you know, even raw umber is really great for all sorts of skin tones too, because I've done a couple of 𝗩𝗶𝗰𝗸𝗶 copy studies, and I found raw umber was imperative for those. So just to have it on your palette for skin is very useful. It's coming underneath the eye socket area, and I'm going to put that in with a bit lighter as I come around away from the shadow. It gets a bit lighter again. Go back into my white and lighten that up a bit. It's just a delicate balance between light and dark, cool and warm, and down into the eyebrows. And then this area here is much yellower, so I'm going to put a bit more yellow ochre into there. I might need to dip into my walnut oil a little bit. And then, oh, that's way too chromatic, so I'm going to knock that down with some white and some of the other skin tone there. I don't want it being bright yellow, which it sort of is, so I'm going to have to put maybe a bit of the purple into it, the mauve color with the white, and that makes it less chromatic as well, which it sort of needs. So I'll bring that down around her cheeks and even into the eye socket a little bit. Yeah, that's getting there. And then that yellow, the same yellow almost, is on the top, on the bridge of her nose. So I'm just going to bring that in there a little bit. And it's on the top of the nostril. I can see a bit of yellow. Basically, it's all just those colors and just figuring out if it's warmer or cooler, more or less saturated, and darker or lighter. Now I've gone a bit too dark there, so I'm going to knock that down, put that in there, see how that looks a bit better. Might be a bit yellower. Some of the colors that I've got out I may not even use actually. So I'm just putting in some of these bits here. Now this bit across her cheeks is a little bit pinker, so I'll probably just add a smidgen of the cadmium red and maybe even a touch of the cad orange just to make it a bit lighter. But around the cheeks and the nose, it's often just a little pinker across the bridge of the nose and the cheeks, but it's not bright pink like you would see on Caucasian skin. It's more of a browny pink. And
So we
the
have a
raw
question.
Oh, yes.
Tamara is asking, does Vicki mix fresh colors every day, or is there a way that she keeps her palette and mix colors fresh overnight or for a few days?
Well, that's a good question, and I will show you. Hang on. What I do is, so I use these plastic containers, and so for this painting I've got Eric written on there, so I knew what these colours were for, and I just scoop them up with my palette knife and put them in the takeaway food container and then put it in the freezer. So some colours last a lot longer, like the ultramarine and yellow ochre, the yellows, the cadmiums, and the white, they seem to last a long time, and the transparent colours. The raw umber, you can't really do that with, I've found. It's it might last once, but it goes pretty hard pretty quick.
One of the things you can do, I don't know if you've ever done this, but you can put a little bit, a tiny drop of clove oil. Usually if it's a dark, it's 2 drops, and clove oil will extend. Sometimes that paint will last a lot longer, but it also takes a lot longer to dry.
Right. Yes. And well, I haven't done that. I don't like to mix anything in with the paint that I'm not utterly sure of. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Well, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏
how
did
that.
it.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 did it, hey, it must be okay. I'm a big 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 fan. Huge 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 fan. I studied at the Angel Academy in Florence, which I was very lucky to do. And it changed my life. It was one of the most amazing experiences ever. And I learned so much. And they're very big into 𝗏𝗏𝗏, like that. The training is very 𝗏𝗏𝗏 based in a way. It's very gestural. And I found it just incredible. It changed my life going there. It was really great. So I feel very lucky that I was able to study with Michael John Angel. He's a lot of fun.
Well, your story is fascinating to me. How you raised the money, how you set your goal, and how you made that happen.
It took me a long time to save, I must say.
You want to touch on that, because it's truly an inspiration.
Well, I did. We do home exchanging, or we did in the past. We haven't done it for a while, but we went to Venice and I saw some work in a gallery that was very realistic portrait. And I went in and spoke to the lady, and she said, oh, that was Ramiro Sanchez's work, and he studied at the Florence Academy. We had nothing like that in Australia where you could study realism. There was nobody teaching it. I don't think hardly anybody knew, there weren't many people out there. There was certainly no schools or academies where you could go and train. So I looked it up and I thought, oh, I don't think I'll ever be able to afford that. But then I thought, well, maybe, if I save up, I can go and do a trimester or something. And so I started saving up, and I spoke to another friend at another artist friend, and he said, oh, why aren't you saving up to go to the Angel Academy? And I said, oh, I didn't know there was an Angel Academy. And he said, yes, that's really good too. So I looked them up, and I decided that that's where I wanted to go. It's a smaller school, which suited me better. And so I started saving up, and I could go and just do a trimester. I applied and I got in, and I just went over, did one trimester, and it changed my life so much. And I just went in every morning and was in there as soon as the school opened. I was there, and when they were closing at night, I was there, and they couldn't get rid of me. And a lot of the young kids had come in and they go, how come you're always here? I was like, because it took me 3 years to save up. I'm not going to waste a minute. So anyway, and then I came home and I'd learned so much, and I just felt like that was what I wanted to do. So I saved up and I did, and I went back again a few years later, because it's a big airfare from Australia, of course. And
not to mention a long flight.
It's a long flight, and it's kind of expensive for us with the Aussie dollar and the euro, but it was so well worth it. It was just wonderful. And now there's ateliers, springing up. A lot of the people I trained with have started their own ateliers around the world, which is really lovely. I don't know if there's really one here in Australia yet, but
well, what are you doing? What are you waiting for?
I'm too busy painting. It's a lot of work to run a school, I imagine, all the admin and everything. But I am doing a video with Eric Rhodes, a portrait video. So if people want to learn how to paint portraits, they can always go on my mailing list and sign up, and to be alerted when the video is released, which
we'll put all of your information in the chat so people can link over.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, that was exciting. I did go to Austin, Texas recently and stayed in Eric's backyard and the world famous artist cabin. That was fun.
Well, and because you had to come in early to overcome jet lag, we got a chance to spend the weekend together, which was lovely.
It was really great. And thank you for taking me shopping to the art shops. That was great. Nice. It's always fun to go and visit art shops, isn't it?
Every city I go to the art shops. I'm looking forward to Tokyo this March because there's a place called the Pigment Store, which is supposed to be fabulous.
Oh, have you been to 𝗧𝗍𝗄's in Florence?
I have been to 𝗧𝗍𝗄.
Yeah,
I love 𝗧𝗍𝗄.
they're lovely. Sandro and yeah, they're just lovely people. And what a great shop, isn't it?
Oh, it's
just
fabulous.
really, yeah.
Well, that was the first time I ever saw raw pigment.
Yes, me too. Me too. And it was so exciting. It felt really incredible to see it because we just don't have things like that here. Although I think there is now a shop in Australia that sells the raw pigment. I haven't actually bought any of the raw, but I think they do have it here now. But 𝗧𝗍𝗄's is just lovely because of all the history, isn't it? You know, it just feels it's in such a historic part of the city and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting in the highlights here and just going into those mixes. I mean, as you can see, it's not a huge amount of difference in these colours. You know what I mean? Like there's they're all very similar. Just slightly tipped yellow, slightly tipped red, slightly tipped blue. There's not dramatic changes in those skin tones. So I'm just sort of putting in the highlight on her cheek, and I'll fiddle a lot more later. It's just, I'm sort of getting used to having a tripod in between me and the painting as well. It's quite different, but hopefully I'm doing a good enough job that you'll see what I'm doing. But you can see how the raw umber really sort of harmonizes the skin tones here. That's what I felt it was doing. It was really quite a harmonizer. So now I'm just going to get a different brush. I'm going to put that brush to the back and get these are the rosemary brushes, 278s and 279s, and they're very nice just for softening. I'm just going to soften some edges here where I've got the highlight, and down here just some of my edges are a bit raw. I thought I'd just soften them a little bit, and slight bit of blending, not too much. And this paint, I'm not putting it on very thickly either. You know, I'm building this up in layers. So it's not hugely thick. Now I'm going to go into a much smaller brush now, and maybe I might just play around with the mouth a little bit and show you what I'm going to do for the mouth. Whoops, I just dropped all my paper towel there. I'll just grab that. So my thing for the mouth was a bit of alizarin, my mixture, bit of alizarin, bit of raw umber. Again, the raw umber is perfect for the mouth. I've found it just sort of neutralizes those reds into a really nice sort of pinky brown color. And in here, she's not very chromatic in here, so I'm just going to make a few mixtures of those with the white, a bit of the raw umber and the alizarin into this. There we go. It's a different palette than I'm used to as well, so I'm just sort of getting used to the wooden palette. It's quite different to a glass palette or wooden palette.
It is.
Okay, so we're getting there. That's that's sort of getting there for the pale part of the lips. And see how browny pink that is?
Yep.
I don't know if you can, I'll just hold it up.
Yep.
It's a sort of very pale browny pink. So the raw umber is a really quick way to get to that sort of neutralized pink, because you don't want highly pink lips because she isn't wearing lipstick, so that's her natural lip color. You don't want it to be highly pink, too pink or anything. So I'm just going to dip into my walnut oil and loosen that up a bit, and then add a bit of that and a bit of that. Just slightly tipping it darker. Probably need to put out a little bit more of the alizarin, a bit more of the raw umber. There. It's a huge mixture of it, but better to have too much paint than not enough out, I think. You don't want to be too stingy with the paint. Okay, so I've probably got that a bit too pink, so I'm going to stick a bit more raw umber in it so that it's sort of pink, but more browny pink than pink, if that makes sense.
Hey, everybody, tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And also, if you have any questions you want me to share with Vicki, please let me know.
Now I'm going to start in on the corner of the mouth, which I'm doing with the very brown pink, which sort of comes out a little bit there and a little bit underneath and a tiny bit in the corner of the mouth. And then I'm going to go into the paler part of the pink and do this across the top of the bottom lip. Now that's the part that sort of sticks out and is catching the light, because the light's coming down onto that lip and that lip is protruding. So this is the bit that catches the light. I'm going to stick a bit more white in there so I can show that bit of light across the top of the lip.
All right, I'm going to read this to you, Vicki. This is from Royal Blue. Good day from West Australia. We have lost power due to windy storms, but thank goodness for the YouTube app on my phone. A fabulously pleasant demonstration live today with Vicki. Just perfect.
Oh, g'day in Western Australia. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm a long way from Western Australia. I'm down on the Mornington Peninsula, which is below Melbourne, about an hour and a half below Melbourne. And it's a very famous area for the light. We're on a peninsula surrounded by the Southern Ocean and Port Phillip Bay. And so we get beautiful light conditions down here, and quite a lot of famous painters have painted here in the past. So.
And your favorite would be?
Oh, Arthur Streeton painted just down the road. And Penley Boyd is another one. You can look him up. He died quite young, so there's not a huge body of his work, but he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But lots of other, Collie Wisson paints down here. You just saw Collie Wisson the other day, but he's painted quite a bit down here. I've seen paintings of his of the Mornington Peninsula. So we have pretty little boat sheds on the bay, and we have beautiful surf beaches. So I'll show you some of my plein air paintings later. Just a couple.
Well, I have one of them, if you remember.
You have one of my plein airs, do you?
I do. You gave me one. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, that's right. That's of the bay. That's exactly right. I gave you a sunrise.
It was either sunrise or sunset. Yeah.
Yes, it's a sunrise. I loved you got me addicted to plein air painting over the pandemic. I was listening to plein air live, or plein air, not live, plein air podcast. And that got me interested in plein air, and I started painting in the garden. And then, when things got better, I started going out and doing plein air, and now I'm quite addicted to it. It's such fun.
Well, I didn't realize that you learned about it from the plein air podcast.
Well, it really helped. I learned a lot of things from the plein air podcast, because I had tried it before, but I was so bad at it after being a studio painter. I just just couldn't do it. And then I started listening to the Plein Air podcast, and there were so many tips on there from all the different painters. And so I started listening to it and picking up tips. And then it just really helped me come home with something that I wasn't totally ashamed of. So, you know, when you start having a bit of success, it is very addictive, isn't it? You know.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It is. It's really good fun. Okay, so you can see how the lips have got that browny alizarin, raw umber and white, basically. But that's sort of all you need for those lips, which is nice. Now, behind her lips, on the far cheek, there's a bit more of that mauve. So I'm going to get this little brush. It's a mauvey brown, but there's definitely cool areas in there. So I'm going to go in there and just tweak them with a bit of this mauve. I might need a little bit more blue, I think, in there. Maybe
So do you try to cover your first round entirely, or do you leave some of the passages to bleed through?
Usually well, that's a good question. A bit of both. So I have left some of the underpainting showing through the hair, but I'll probably go over that around the edges. But I quite like having a bit of the raw umber showing underneath now. I quite like that. I need a bit more blue in here, maybe a bit of cobalt into that brownie. But the first pass, I probably end up going over the first pass pretty well,
Okay.
mostly.
Hey, Vicki, would you finish this passage here? Why don't you take a quick break, and I'm just going to go on and make a couple of announcements.
Sure. Okay, I'm just putting the last bit of mauve into that skin. There you go. And I'll stop for a minute while you do your announcements.
Outstanding. Our guest today is Vicki Sullivan from Australia, and she's teaching us how to create dark skin. So really great demo. This is, I think, the second pass on that. We have an event coming up. Vicki is actually going to be teaching. Let me show you this. Realism Live is the most comprehensive course, I think, on earth, because it has about 25 incredible artists. It has portraits, figures, landscape, still life, cityscapes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. we wanted to give you the full enchilada, if you will. And the idea here is that we have some of the artists who are teaching in a classical form and some who are teaching in a more impressionistic form. So you can really learn. And even though you might be interested in one thing more than the other, all things will inform other things. Vicki Sullivan, our guest today, has taught or has attended Realism Live, and she's going to be teaching on Realism Live. And Vicki, what are you going to be doing?
I'm going to show people how I would do an underpainting, and basically a black and white underpainting, which sets up for turning the form and gets it ready for colour. And it's especially good for very pale skin, because if you do the black and white underpainting, you get a better glow from underneath when you put your translucent skin tones on top. So yeah, that's going to be my lesson on Realism Live. But I really enjoyed Realism Live when I did it. It was so great. And I've done some 𝗏𝗶 copies. Graydon Parrish did a 𝗏𝗶 copy study on his Realism Live, and I did one. You know, it inspired me to do one, which you learn a lot from doing copy studies.
All right. Here's a question. It says, Vicki, do you primarily paint direct or indirect? I started my first master's study for portrait oil self-learning practice. I'm too slow for 𝗓𝗶. The skin tone value mixing is my lesser strength.
Well, then, yes, I definitely, for portraits, I do paint with layers because it helps me get control. I do also have live models here sometimes and do 𝗓𝗶 studies, and they're really fun to do. But for more serious portraits, I definitely need to paint in layers because I'm pretty slow too. So, and to get the control and the drawing right, I seem to need to take my time to do it. So I would suggest do both. It's really great to paint from life, but you know, doing both is great. And copy studies is a great way to learn as well.
Well, when I come over there, we'll get a model and we'll go nuts.
Yes, and you can be the model too.
Well, how can I paint if I'm the model?
You can do both. Stay longer.
I have actually modeled while painting.
Oh, wow, that's too hard. That's too one thing at a time. So,
it's hard not to move your head when you're painting.
Yeah. Now, shall I go back in and do a little bit more?
Whatever you want to do. You've got about 7 or 8 minutes.
Okay, so I'm just going to fiddle around here. There's a bit more of this on the as her form of the head is turning away from the light, it's turning cooler. So I love these cool areas, so I'm just wanting to put those in. And that when you're painting portraits, it's really good to look and start seeing if you can see the cooler areas on the skin. I didn't used to see it. And then all of a sudden it flicked on like a light switch and I could see it. And now I'm searching out those cool skin tones. So I quite like painting redhead people. I like painting all skin tones, but recently I've had a few redheaded models and they're really fun to paint because their cool areas are sort of turquoises and greens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fun to be searching those colors out, I think. So yeah, so anyway, now under here, as you can see, that's a lot darker, so I might as well see if I can pop that in while we're at it. I'll get another brush and dip into my walnut oil a little bit, and I think I'll tackle that with a bit of this what's it called, transparent brown oxide, with maybe a bit of my raw umber. Umber is my go-to, and just a tiny bit of the skin tone, just to sneak a bit of that skin tone into that dark, because it's not totally dark, is it? And then putting in this shadow. I think more raw umber is needed, actually, come to think of it. It's a great color, this raw umber, and it's an earth pigment, and earth pigments are very stable, just like brown umber is very stable color as well. And then I'm going to have to mix into that with some of the redder skin tones. So I might stick a bit of the cad red into that, not too much, and a bit of the skin tone into that as well. And mix it together for this sort of, I've got it way too light there, so knock that down with a bit more skin tone, and then put that in on top as it's a bit warmer after the shadow, and blend it a teeny bit. And then as it comes around here, it gets greener. So I think I'd go for the raw umber, maybe a bit of the greener looking tone. Because raw umber is a yellow. It's the darkest yellow, just so you know. Burnt umber is the darkest red. So if you want to tip things, it's always good to know, you know, it's a red base, yellow base, blue base. If you want the darkest blue based is ivory black. And they're sort of the darkest in each section. I'm just putting the shadow in under the nostril there. That needs to be softened. Whoops, that line there. I think I need a much softer brush for that.
This is
And
very
then
valuable.
Oh,
It's kind of like
good.
watching paint be painted.
Well, hopefully it'll give you some ideas of where to start for mixing the darker skin tones. And then just, as I said, just look for those warms and cools and tip your mixes warmer, cooler, darker, lighter, saturated, less saturated.
Richard
And
Marston is being a smart aleck. He's asking, what's the darkest green? It's you take the darkest blue and the darkest yellow, and that makes the darkest green.
Yeah, what is your darkest green? That's a good question.
Well, it's the darkest, it's your darkest yellow and your darkest blue. So it'd be ivory black and
Yeah, and raw umber,
raw umber.
I suppose. Yeah, yeah. I hadn't even thought of the darkest green actually, but yes. But then that's a mixed color, isn't it? Really, the other
It's
just
mixed.
with,
Well, it's a secondary. It's not not a primary.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So if that's the
Yeah.
case, then what would be the darkest? Did we do red? The darkest red?
Yeah, burnt umber's your darkest red.
Burnt umber is your darkest red. Okay.
Yeah, so your darkest orange would be raw umber and burnt umber, but it kind of doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
So it
Brown
really
plus
just
brown.
makes sense for the primaries, sort of.
Yep.
But so you can see that it's starting to happen there. And then I would, for the around the where the light is hitting this area here on her nose, I've gone a bit dark in there. So I'd stick a bit of light into there and lighten that area up. And it's just adjusting as you go. And hopefully this has been a helpful lesson of somewhere to start as you're mixing, you know, darker skin tones. And you know,
Okay,
you can
so let's see if people are paying attention. I'm going to give away a general admission pass to Realism Live. Somebody in the comments can answer the question. What two colors make the darkest green? Go. See if anybody comes up with it. It's a very great prize. Absolutely a great prize.
That is a great prize. Wow. I hope some friends are watching so they can. I didn't tell anybody. I don't think I told any of my friends because I should have advertised it, I guess.
Okay. Anybody else going to put their answer in? We're going to have to randomly pick one here. Oh, well, okay. Some of you got it right.
I'm not
Okay.
really sure if that really is a true question, though, come to think of it. You know, I think if I was mixing the darkest green, I think I'd, like for a really good green for trees or something, I would mix ultramarine and cad yellow pale.
Well, or maybe add a little. Well, ultramarine. Yeah, that could work, I guess. Okay, now I have to give one away. Now you've just ruined everything because I was basing on what you
Sorry.
said.
Oh,
Now I don't know
sorry.
I don't know who to pick. So
Oh.
I'll pick randomly from somebody who answered. This is a what, $300-400 prize. Okay, 𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗁, chime in, tell us where you're from because you're winning it, and then we're going to need to get your information. You're the winner, 𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗁. You're going to get to go to Realism Live in November. It's online. Anybody can go, but you have to pay for it. You don't have to, Tamara. Yay.
How lovely.
Tamara. Or maybe it's Tamara. Maybe it's Tamara.
Congratulations, Tamara.
Yeah, really.
That is a great prize. You will have a lot of fun and you will learn so much. And I suggest when you're watching, have a notebook beside you and write down as you go. That's what I did, because there's so much information that you don't want to forget it because it's all really good.
Tamara is from Waterford, California. Okay, Tamara, congratulations. Tamara, my assistant, Allie, will reach out to you in hopefully a direct message and try to get your contact information so we can give you that prize.
Okay.
All
now,
right.
Eric, did you want me to show you my studio yet? Or
yeah, let's do that because we're going to have to end here in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So good idea. Let's give a round of applause to Vicki Sullivan. All right, you got to see this studio. This is pretty cool.
So I'll turn you around so you can see the corner. I've got a whole bunch of paintings up there. The Van Dyke is not mine. That's a photo, but I just did that still life over here with the bird, the little bird. So I've been doing quite a few still lifes lately. And then those paintings are mine. And there's my 𝗩𝗶𝗰 copy studies up on the wall. I'll take you over so you can see them a little bit better.
All right.
Let me see. How's that? You can that way. And I'm just getting the angle of so you can see my two 𝗩𝗶𝗰s, the lady up on the wall with the fabric. Can you see those?
Yep.
And this is the one that Graydon did in the corner there.
Right. So you did that from Realism Live.
Yeah, that was really helpful because I just sort of learned from him what he was doing, especially the background color and everything, and took it from there. So that was really helpful. And there's some of my other paintings. And here's another painting with even darker skin tones. So, you know, and I used a lot of those same colors, just more red, a lot more red in there, and reddy brown. So, you know, it can be very useful. So over here, there's a little commission that I just did, and some other paintings I'm working on. And I've got a little model set up over here for if I have a group and we do life painting. And then over here, I have my still life set up. The light's not on, but you can see I'm painting a still life there.
Oh, there's your palette. Look at that thing. That's monstrous.
Yeah, that's my palette. See, that's how I normally paint. So for me, painting up on an angle was quite different. But I have it set out, and I have a bit of sheepskin here so that when I have all my brushes out, they don't roll off. I sort of put them pointing the color that I'm using, because I have like one brush for each color, and sometimes I'll end up with 70 brushes at the end of the day, which is a lot. And then over here, got you can see bananas out of there, and I have a map drawer and things like that. And then I've got a few of my little still life paintings over here. And this is the one that I'm most proud of, which I just did the other day. And that's 𝗂𝗶𝗰 Street, where it's one of the beaches where I grew up. There, that's a better angle, isn't it? And my dad used to take us fishing there.
We are officially out of time. We're going to get cut off on some platforms. So thank you so much today, and come on and say goodbye.
Thank you for having me, Eric. It's been really fun, and I hope I was helpful I hope people learn something. And
You were
and
awesome. And we will see you on Realism Live. Thank you.
Can't wait. Great.
All right. Our guest today, Vicki Sullivan. Thank you, Vicki, for doing this. And thank you for watching. I'm Eric Rhodes.